Hey everyone, welcome to another video. I really wanted to get this out there and talk about how the Oscar race has actually kind of changed a lot since we have our first reviews out of Venice and Telluride. I wanted to make sure both festivals had showcased pretty much the best of what they had to offer before making this video. So today I'm going to go through all of the films that I think are going to have a significant impact on the Oscar race in many different categories. So let's get into it. Okay, not wasting any time here. The big festival darling right now is Poor Things, the Yorgos Lanthimos movie that I myself am very excited for. I had predicted it in a number of categories, but my confidence in it was just waning by the day because it's a very quirky looking movie. However, that doesn't seem to be bothering a whole lot of critics and audiences. It is right now sitting on a 94 on Metacritic, which with these types of films, I think Metacritic is the best figure to look at in terms of these films, because a lot of prestigious films like this usually have a high Rotten Tomatoes score because they at least recognize the craft to give it a thumbs up, which can kind of inflate those numbers. Metacritic, I think, gives a better figure on what the critics are actually thinking, how passionate they are about certain films. And I was not expecting a 94 for Poor Things by any means. I thought some people were going to be turned off by this, but I'm hearing the word masterpiece thrown around a lot. I'm hearing this could be Yorgos Lanthimos' best film. A lot of people really love his work, and his previous work in The Favourite was a huge Oscar darling, and a lot of people are saying the same thing about 10 or so nominations or more. Emma Stone seems like she is a massive frontrunner for Best Actress, which we're kind of looking for. There are a lot of strong contenders, but there wasn't really a frontrunner until now. So I think that in terms of my predictions personally, Poor Things will be reflected in my next predictions video because the overwhelming response just seems so compelling, where it's probably a top 4 contender for Best Picture. And that is crazy to me with the type of film that they're going for. I'm so glad it's doing well. I am extremely excited for this movie. I'm hoping that it's going to release at the Brisbane International Film Festival next month, which I'll be going to, but we'll see. The next one here, of course, another potential massive Oscar contender here, Maestro, Bradley Cooper's next film. This has also been splattered into my predictions all throughout the year. But once again, I needed to see a little bit more in terms of reaction before I came to a final judgment. And from what I'm hearing and the kind of reaction that it's gotten, this seems like Mank in a lot of ways. It looks like it's going to be a technically brilliant film, which you could see from the trailer. A fantastic performance from Bradley Cooper. And surprisingly, Carey Mulligan could also be a frontrunner. This is also a case where Rotten Tomatoes kind of inflates how people are really thinking about this movie, because in the time of recording, it's at a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes with a critic rating. However, Metacritic is at an 81 and Letterboxd is around 3.4 or something. So it seems like people like the film enough to give it a thumbs up, respect the craft. It's definitely not a bad movie in terms of how people are reacting to it. But it doesn't seem like there's real passion there. It's probably a shoo-in for a number of categories, but it seems like the type of movie where you're not really going to see it on the top 10 list for many people at the end of the year. Obviously, the makeup is also being praised. It got a really nice standing ovation. There's plenty of good things to go with this movie, and I do think that it will fare well in a number of categories. It might get into Best Picture. It's still kind of on the fringe in my eyes, but Bradley Cooper as an actor, not as a director, will most likely get nominated. Carey Mulligan looks like she's definitely going to get nominated. And the makeup also seems like a shoe-in. The cinematography might be as well, with that beautiful aspect ratio and the use of black and white. All seem like really interesting choices. But once again, it does seem like Mank in a lot of ways, where there's more of an appreciation of the craft than real passion for what the movie does and how it moves you. The next big one out of Venice, The Killer, David Fincher's new movie. I recently did a trailer reaction to that one, and from my interpretation of that trailer, it just looked like more David Fincher. It doesn't seem like it's doing anything crazy or out of the box, which is probably enough for a lot of people because He really went out there with Mank. It's completely different to what we're used to from him. So him going back to his roots a little bit more with The Killer seemed like a welcome addition to David Fincher's filmography at this point in time. And the reviews seem to be reflecting that a lot. It's getting fairly decent reviews, but nothing out of this world. Right now, a 72 on Metacritic, which is fine. I don't think that this is an Oscar contender at all, but I really want to talk about this one because I'm personally am very excited about it. I'm sure a lot of you are as well. It's a David Fincher movie, and it seems like it's going to be giving us a lot to enjoy, but this is probably going to go down the route of something like a Gone Girl in terms of how it's going to fare at the Oscars. It might get a sound nomination or something like that, but that's about it. It may also get editing. I'm hearing a lot of praise for the editing for this film. A lot of David Fincher's films are very well edited though. He's just so meticulous with his direction, and it seems like that's just carrying on here. And the trailer really reflected how great the editing will look in this movie. Then the opening night film of Venice, Ferrari, the new Michael Mann movie. This one to me seemed well out of any kind of Oscar contention. Just the trailer and the stills that they released ages ago didn't really strike me as anything crazy impressive. And it's pretty much reacting that way. It's in the low 3s on Letterboxd. It's on a 74 on Metacritic. It's doing okay. It seems like the sound may be an Oscar contender in terms of a nomination. I do hear that Penelope Cruz steals the show in that supporting performance, but I'm not hearing nomination buzz there. The same could be said for Adam Driver. I'm actually hearing a lot of similarities to House of Gucci, and when I was watching the trailer and he wasn't speaking for the entirety of it, that kind of drew up a little bit of a red flag for me, because I'm like, what if the accent's bad? Adam Driver has a very strong, deep American accent, so it's hard for him to remove that with this Italian one. And House of Gucci did a fairly okay job at it, but nothing out of this world. And I am hearing with Ferrari that it was kind of insulting to a lot of the locals at the Venice Film Festival, that accent, because it just didn't capture any authenticity. To me, this looks like a film that is probably a 7 out of 10 kind of movie. You watch it once, you're going to have a good time, and then you move on to the next thing. It doesn't seem like something that's going to stick with you in any meaningful way. But I'm still looking forward to checking it out, even if it doesn't look like it's going to be the most impressive movie in the world. And then we have Priscilla, which this one to me was kind of the shocker out of the entire festival in terms of how well it's actually doing. I was expecting this to sit around the 50s on Metacritic, but it's on an 84, which kind of astounds me that it's really doing that well. A lot of people saying that this might be Sofia Coppola's best film since Lost in Translation, which I'm not too familiar with her work, but that seems like a pretty nice compliment in terms of how well respected her filmography is at this stage of her career. I did mention in my last Oscars video that Kaylee Spaney could be a dark horse contender. I feel like that this film could pick up a low nomination in that category, similar to Spencer or Blonde. And my feelings on that feel quite stronger as we've gotten these reactions. It feels like it might be a bit crazy if Priscilla gets nothing. So I do think that there is a chance that Spaney gets a nomination here, and then it kind of gets shut out of everything else. I do hear Jacob Elordi's pretty good, but I think what's going to hold this film back a lot in terms of an Oscar campaign and how it's going to really fare with a lot of audiences is that we've just recently had Elvis. I don't know how interested we are in going back to learning more about Elvis and Priscilla and that kind of history when Baz Luhrmann's Elvis was a massive movie that did really well. We'll have to wait and see. But I do see that there is a possibility that Spaney could get in just because these reviews are so great. The last film out of Venice that I really want to talk about was Evil Does Not Exist, the Ryosuke Hamaguchi film, the director of Drive My Car, if you don't know. I was expecting that this could be a contender for international feature film, as he won with the last film that he made. This seems like it's fairly weaker compared to what we're used to from him. Usually his work is in the 4s on Letterboxd, and this movie's in the 3s. It does sit on a solid 81 on Metacritic, and it is doing fairly well, but not as well as what we're used to from him. I think there's still a chance he can get nominated, but the international film category looks really strong this year, so he might get edged out. Okay, moving over to the Telluride Film Festival, the movie that I'm really excited about. I had really no anticipation for this at all, and then I saw the trailer and it jumped right up in my most anticipated for the rest of the year. And that is Saltburn, the new film from Emerald Fennell, director of Promising Young Woman, which is a movie I really love. Saltburn kind of got a lot of mixed reactions, and I weirdly heard some comparisons to Babylon, which, I mean, for me, that makes me more excited. Babylon is my movie of the year for 2022. It won my Best Picture award. So if this is kind of going down that vein, I'm not mad at that, to be honest. And I can see how some people might not like that because Babylon got a very mixed reaction too. But from the trailer, the cinematography looks astounding. The performances are very interesting. The screenplay looks dynamic and unique. Emerald Fennell has a lot of interesting ideas that she really likes to bring to the table, and I saw a lot of that in Promising Young Woman, and I'm really excited to see her continue that on. I am also hearing that the final act or final scene in this film kind of makes the story falter a little bit in what it's trying to achieve. Really want to see more with this movie, and I really cannot wait to check it out. The next one, which kind of blew everyone away, I think, All of Us Strangers, the new film that's starring Paul Mescal, has a 98 on Metacritic. That is so high, and instantly could launch this into being a potential Best Picture nominee. It kind of feels like the Aftersun of this year, where it's this more quiet, reserved film that really hits a punch at the end, which I'm excited to see. I love Aftersun. It just gets better and better in my head the more I think about it. And if we're going to get more of that, I'm super happy about that. So this one is another one that kind of just popped up on my watch list straight away after seeing these reactions, because I knew virtually nothing about this before. But also, judging from what I'm hearing about a slower pace and being more reserved, that's probably not going to fare as well with audiences. Expect a low audience score for this film, probably in the 70s to potentially the 50s. I just have believed less and less in the new George C. Wolfe movie. I really liked Ma Rainey's Black Bottom before. He clearly understands how to get a great performance out of an actor. So this seemed like a real vehicle, Coleman Domingo, to finally get an Oscar nomination. He seems overdue a little bit because he is a fantastic actor. And while he's new in terms of that cultural relevance, Euphoria kind of put him on the map for a lot of people. He's been churning out some excellent work lately. So I'm excited to see the performance. The film itself doesn't particularly interest me. And while it has a 68 on Metacritic, which is fairly decent, on Letterboxd, I did see a lot of 1 to 2 star reviews. So this might be something that just doesn't really leave that much of an impression on you. One that I perhaps probably have a bit of a hot take for with this film, because I still don't believe that it's a massive Oscar player, is The Holdovers, the Alexander Payne movie. It has done fairly decent. It sits on a 78 on Metacritic, and it seems like it's sitting in the mid 3s to high 3s on Letterboxd. So there's nothing to scoff at there, but I still don't fully buy this as this thing that's going to get nominated across the board and be a huge player in Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Actor, all of these things. I do see a couple of nominations in its future, perhaps Paul Giamatti, perhaps Screenplay. But going beyond that, it does seem kind of tough for me to fully be on board with that movie, just because it does seem like one that will be enjoyed for sure by a lot of people, but I think will be forgotten about when we're put in the mix with all of these other amazing films that are releasing throughout the year. TIFF, I think, is going to have a couple of sleeper hits that are going to nudge this right out. And it seems really strange to me that this is getting put up as number 4, 5, 6 on a lot of people's Best Picture predictions, and pushing down things like Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, and The Zone of Interest, which all have a ton of passion behind it. You can see plenty of 5-star reviews for that. And yes, I don't believe that you need a 100 or a real high 90 to get a Best Picture nomination. We've seen it before. We've seen films in the 40s, 50s, and 60s get Best Picture nominations. but they need to have real passion behind them. In the Green Book situation, which the Holdovers gets consistently compared to a lot in terms of its potential trajectory, Green Book did have some passion behind it. Even though, in a broad context, a lot of people just enjoyed it and moved on, some people did have it really high on their list and were fine with a Best Picture win at that stage. So I still need to wait and see the movie for myself to really make that final judgment call in terms of my own predictions. I could be behind the curve on all of this stuff, but right now I still don't believe in the Holdovers. The review scores and the type of reception it's getting and what people are saying about it seem really in line with what I think that this movie is going to be, which isn't something that is a massive Oscar player to me. It does seem like a bit of a shame that these movies like Past Lives, Zone of Interest, and Anatomy of a Fall, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse could be potentially pushed out for the Holdovers. That seems like a baffling choice to me, and one that would probably annoy me when we get those final Oscar nominations. As I said, the Holdovers could be my movie of the year. I do not know. I could be really charmed and impressed by everything that this has to display. 100%, don't get me wrong. But yeah, at this stage, I'm just not buying it. Now, talking about the one major short here, I had to talk about it. I've done a few videos on this guy now, Wes Anderson, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, the short film that he put out at Venice is about 40 minutes long. I'm excited to see it. I really am. I'm just hearing, the same thing that we've been hearing since probably Isle of Dogs. It's more Wes Anderson. If you like Wes Anderson, you'll like the movie. If you don't like Wes Anderson, you'll hate it. It's kind of been the trajectory of practically every film he's done since Isle of Dogs. So it's kind of unfortunate to keep seeing that, because I do think that he makes some significant adjustments with the way that he presents a narrative. It's just a little bit more under the surface, and you kind of have to be really locked in and engaged with what he's trying to present to really see that. But it does seem like this film was made to be a short in terms of its runtime. It's kind of perfect for the type of film that this is. I'm, as I said, really excited to check it out. I'm not as hyped to see it as Asteroid City or something like that, because while I do love the feature-length films of Wes Anderson, there's only maybe one short film of his that I really liked, which was Hotel Chevalier. Everything else in there is just kind of bounces off on me, because it's just the style and that's really it. Now, this film could get nominated for Best Live Action Short Film, but I'm hearing some talk that they might just shut this out, weirdly enough. If this got a real campaign behind it, I feel like this would be a shoo-in to get Wes Anderson his first Oscar, which might be a little bit underwhelming because it's in the shorts category, but it's an Oscar nonetheless. They're all prestigious, they all mean a lot. So for him to finally win one would be an excellent moment that I personally would really love to see. It just needs a campaign behind it. There's another little mixture of films that I won't really go into too much detail in. El Conde is one that I'm really excited for. It hasn't been faring too well with reviews, but the stylistic choices look really insane. It could be a cinematography contender. And it's from Pablo Larraín. I loved his last film in Spencer, even though that was kind of divisive. So I'm looking forward to this and seeing what he's going to do with this movie. It releases on Netflix in like a week, so I'm definitely checking that out and reviewing it for you guys 100%. And yeah, that's my review roundup for Venice and Telluride. I definitely would like to do one on TIFF when that comes around, seeing as I can't be at these festivals, unfortunately. I really want to one day, but this is my way of just letting you know the ones that are attracting the most buzz could be potential contenders at the Oscars, or just ones that you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy. TIFF is going to have a pretty decent lineup. We've already started to see reviews for The Boy and the Heron, the last Hayao Miyazaki film, Studio Ghibli. We're going to see reviews for Next Goal Wins any minute now, and a bunch of other movies are coming, so there's a lot to talk about there. So with that said, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.